New York City, the lights, the noise, the hustle. You can't fake it here. Either you're built for it, or the city spits you out. And for 15 years, one man carried the weight of that concrete jungle on his back. Patrick Ewing. When you walk into Madison Square Garden, you don't just walk into an arena. You step into a cathedral. And for a generation, Patrick Ewing was the high priest of basketball in New York. He wasn't flashy like Jordan. He wasn't smooth like Magic. But he was New York through and through. Tough, relentless, and never backing down from a fight. Before Ewing became the king of New York, he was a beast at Georgetown University. Under Coach John Thompson, a man who was more father than coach, Ewing transformed into a legend. In the early 80s, the Hoyas weren't just a college team. They were a movement. They brought swagger, toughness, and intimidation into every gym. And at the center of it all, Ewing. He dragged Georgetown to 3 national title games and cut down the Nets in 1984. That wasn't just a championship, that was a warning shot to the NBA. The game was changing, and Patrick was leading the revolution. And here's the thing, Ewing wasn't just a 7-footer who bullied people on the block. He was different. He had that mid-range jumper, a silky 15 to 18-footer that made defenses sweat. Big men weren't supposed to be hitting those shots, but Patrick, he made it his signature. That jumper was his New York jab, quick, sharp, and always on time. (1985), the first ever NBA draft lottery. Knicks fans prayed, and the basketball gods answered. The ping-pong balls bounced New York's way, and the prize was Patrick Ewing. From that moment, the pressure was insane. The city hadn't seen a championship since '73. They wanted a savior, and they wanted him in orange and blue. And from day one, Patrick didn't flinch. He stepped on the Garden floor like he owned it. Rookie of the Year, instant star. Madison Square Garden was alive again. The 90s in New York? That was trench warfare on hardwood. Every night was a street fight with referees. Against Michael Jordan and the Bulls, it was New York grit versus Chicago greatness. Jordan might have won most of those wars, but Ewing never bowed. He threw punches every series, holding the Knicks up when no one else could. Against Reggie Miller and the Pacers, it was pure theater. Miller played the villain, taunting the Garden, hitting daggers, but Ewing was always there to answer back, controlling the paint and keeping New York alive. Against Alonzo Mourning and the Miami Heat, the rivalry was blood and fire. Georgetown brothers turned NBA enemies, fights, suspensions, and bodies hitting the floor. And at the heart of it all, Ewing, standing tall like a skyscraper. And then the 1994 finals against Hakeem Olajuwon, 2 of the greatest centers ever, face to face. Ewing gave his soul in that series, blocking a finals record 30 shots. But Olajuwon and the Rockets escaped with the championship. Every series, every game, felt like the city itself was in the fight. And Ewing? He was always the last man swinging. Ewing's story is bigger than basketball. It's about carrying the weight of expectations in the most demanding city in the world. It's about redefining what a center could be. It's about battles with Jordan, Miller, Mourning, and Olajuwon that shaped the NBA's golden era. He may not have won a ring, but Patrick Ewing gave New York an identity, a toughness, and a standard. When you talk about the greatest centers ever, Russell, Chamberlain, Kareem, Shaq, Hakeem, Ewing belongs in that conversation. And when you talk about the Knicks, There's no debate. Patrick Ewing is the New York Knicks. New York City basketball is built on toughness. It's about grit, fight, and showing up no matter what. But for all the fire the Knicks brought in the 1990s, they also carried scars. Moments so painful, they're etched in the city's soul forever. Patrick Ewing's missed layup in 1995 was just one piece of that story. Because for a decade, the Knicks lived on the razor's edge. Always one play, one shot, one bounce away from greatness. And yet, it always slipped through their hands. Game 5 of the Eastern Conference Finals at Madison Square Garden. Knicks down 3-2 in the series. The Garden shaking, the city desperate. Then came the play Knicks fans will never forget. Patrick Ewing drew the defense and kicked the ball to Charles Smith, who was standing right under the rim. This was it. The Garden roared. But Jordan, Pippen, Horace Grant, they swarmed like sharks. Smith went up once, blocked. Went up again, stripped. Tried a third time, denied. 4 tries, no bucket. The Bulls grabbed the rebound, walked off with the win, and eventually the series. The Garden went quiet, and Charles Smith's name became a ghost that still haunts Knicks fans today. In 1994, with Jordan retired, the Knicks finally broke through. Patrick Ewing carried them to the NBA Finals against Hakeem Olajuwon and the Houston Rockets. Game 6, Knicks up 3-2. John Starks caught fire late, raining jumpers, electrifying the Garden. He was about to become a New York folk hero, but with seconds left, Olajuwon blocked his potential game winner, forcing a Game 7. Game 7 in Houston. Starks couldn't hit anything. He went 2 for 18 from the field, 0 for 11 from 3. Brick after brick after brick, the Knicks lost the title, and Ewing walked off empty-handed again. To this day, Knicks fans ask, why didn't Pat Riley pull him? Why not go to Hubert Davis instead of riding Starks into the ground? Maybe that decision cost the Knicks their first championship since 1973. Game 7, Eastern Conference Semis. Knicks down 2, final seconds. Everyone knew where the ball was going. Ewing caught it, muscled into the paint, and rose for a layup he'd made 1,000 times. The ball hit the glass, rolled around the rim, and fell out. The Garden froze. The Pacers celebrated. Another season gone. For Patrick Ewing, it was devastating. For Knicks fans, it was heartbreak in slow motion. 1999 Eastern Conference Finals. Knicks versus Pacers again. This time, New York was an underdog, an 8 seed making a miracle run. Game 3. Knicks down 3 in the final seconds. Larry Johnson caught the ball, pump faked, drew the foul, and let it fly. Swish. 3 points and 1. The Garden erupted like an earthquake. It didn't matter that the Knicks would lose to San Antonio in the finals, with Ewing sidelined by injury. That 4-point play was proof that sometimes New York's faith was rewarded. The 90s Knicks were more than just a basketball team. They were New York's mirror. Hard-nosed, flawed, passionate, and loyal to the end. Charles Smith's pain, John Starks' nightmare, Patrick Ewing's miss, Larry Johnson's miracle. These weren't just moments on a court. They were moments that defined a city. They never won the ring, but they gave New York something just as lasting: pride. Patrick Ewing's Knicks. The scars, the heartbreak, the fight. The story of New York. For 15 years, Patrick Ewing was the face of the New York Knicks. He wasn't just their center. He was their anchor, their leader, their fighter. He carried the city on his knees, year after year, battling the best of his era. From his earliest days in the NBA, Ewing's knees were a concern. He played through tendinitis, swelling, and pain so severe that some nights he struggled just to climb the stairs. But in New York, toughness isn't optional. So he suited up, night after night, year after year. Those knees carried the Knicks to the playoffs 13 times in 15 seasons. They battled Jordan's Bulls, Miller's Pacers, Olajuwon's Rockets. They stood tall in the Garden when the lights burned brightest. But as the 1990s wore on, the pain was too much to hide. The lift wasn't the same. The jumper didn't have the same arc. And the man who once looked like a skyscraper in sneakers began to look mortal. December 1997, against the Milwaukee Bucks. Ewing went for a lob, crashed to the floor, and fractured his shooting wrist. Surgery followed. He missed half the season and returned in the playoffs, but he was never the same. For a player who built his game around touch and precision, that injury was cruel. The wrist took away part of his shooting rhythm, his strength in the post, and even his confidence. From that point forward, Patrick Ewing was fighting not just opponents, but his own body. In the summer of 2000, the unthinkable happened. The Knicks traded Patrick Ewing to the Seattle Supersonics in a 4-team deal. For New York, it felt like betrayal. This was their guy, their captain, the man who bled orange and blue for 15 years. Seeing him shipped away was like watching a family member leave home. Fans felt the angst immediately. Talk radio exploded. The back pages called it the end of an era. Madison Square Garden suddenly felt emptier. And though Ewing suited up in green and gold, then later for the Orlando Magic, it never felt right. Patrick Ewing in anything other than a Knicks jersey was like Frank Sinatra without a fedora. Out of place. Unnatural. In Seattle, the fit was awkward. Ewing averaged just 9.6 points per game, his lowest ever. The knees were gone, the wrist still nagged, and the explosiveness had vanished. He finished his career with the Orlando Magic in 2001-2002, coming off the bench behind younger players. Watching Ewing in a Magic uniform was surreal, like seeing the Statue of Liberty in another city. Fans respected the effort, but everyone knew Patrick belonged to New York. When he retired in September 2002, Knicks fans felt relief and sadness at the same time. Relief that his body no longer had to endure the punishment, and sadness that the ride was officially over. Even though injuries ended his career without a championship, Ewing's place in history is secure. He's often called one of the top 5 centers of all time, and the respect he earned from his peers is proof. Shaquille O'Neal, a dominant force in his own right, openly admitted how tough Ewing was to guard. Patrick was one of the hardest big men I ever faced, Shaq said. That jumper, the way he could step out and still bang with you inside, he was a nightmare. Other centers from that golden era, Hakeem Olajuwon, David Robinson, Alonzo Mourning, Dikembe Mutombo, all recognized Ewing's skill. He was the perfect mix of finesse and power, old-school toughness with a modern twist. He never won a ring, but he didn't need one to earn their respect. For all the pain, all the heartbreak, all the near misses, Patrick Ewing will forever be remembered as the epitome of what it means to be a Knick. The knees wrapped in ice after every game, the wrist brace that reminded him of battles fought, the sweat dripping on the garden floor night after night. He gave everything to New York, and the city gave it back in love. Even when he left, even when the jersey colors changed, in the hearts of New Yorkers, Ewing never stopped being theirs. Patrick Ewing retired without a championship. For some, that's the mark that separates him from Russell, Wilt, Kareem, Hakeem, or Shaq. But in New York, the story is different. Here, it's not about how many rings you have. It's about what you gave to the city. And Patrick gave it all. The knees gave out. The wrist betrayed him. The trade stung. But his legend? Untouchable. When Knicks fans talk about their history, there's no debate. Patrick Ewing is their greatest player. The man who embodied the Garden, who carried New York through a decade of wars, who stood tall when the city needed him most. He was a king without a crown. And in New York City, that's enough to make you immortal.